Welcome to the Terry Talks. I'm your host, Terry Brown, and I'll be talking on Tuesdays with real people about real challenges and solutions in real estate investing.
And I would just jump up and say, hey, really, it's like this. And so I would teach it. She's like, I would get kicked out the classroom for teaching other people. So I knew different ways to teach people in a way that made it fun and interesting and still kind of got to the end. So that's what I really wanted to do. That's what I wanted to dedicate my life towards.
Wow. Now, I've known you for a long time, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I did not know that.
I even did it at A&T. The math teacher, I forgot her name. She kicked me out the classroom because I taught a different way than she did. And I taught the students, I think it was my freshman year. And so I didn't go back. Later on, I understood that same teacher was my mother's classmate. And she told me, oh, she wasn't that good in math anyway. I said, oh, okay.
I was going to ask you if it was Dr. Manuel, but if you said she wasn't that good at math, you just know it wasn't her.
Yeah, it was me.
No, and Dr. Manuel. Wow. So, okay. So you shared with us about, you've done the systematized business, and then you are kind of operating as a solopreneur in your contracting business, right? So what are the differences between the mindsets of the two? Because the one thing that I could tell that drives you in all of it was you didn't want to be punching anybody else's clock.
Right.
You didn't want to be told when you could come, you can go, when you could eat, when you could sleep, pretty much when you work for a corporation, they have that level of, I don't want to say control, but they definitely have a level of influence because it comes down to, you're going to either do it our way. Or you want to hit the highway, right? Yeah. So what was one of the biggest mindset shifts that you had to make? Because that's another thing that we spend a lot of time on here in the collective is shifting our mindsets. That I too have a business and that I'm also working full time. And one of the things that I'm experiencing is that I'm becoming more uncomfortable in the comfort of having a 9-to-5. So it's not really, it's comfortable, but it isn't comfortable because I can't just pick up and go. We don't really measure wealth in money. You measure it in time. So what were two of the biggest mindset differences that you think or shifts that you feel like you had to make between each of them? Because it sounds like too that some of this was going on concurrently.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was. First, at one point, I didn't care whether Bank of America knew I had another business or not. And so I told people about both my businesses while I was at Bank of America so that one, I would know who was going to support me, whether I was Bank of America or not. And I learned so much that because I was so authentic in my corporate job, people were authentic with me. I got very little pushback from the things I was doing. Because for one, I've always been a hard worker. I've always I don't get up too early in the morning, but I will work late at night. I mean, there were times for any of my business, I would stay up 24 hours just to make sure what I was doing, my presentation was tight. I would practice what I needed to say. I would actually, go over things 3,000 and 4,000 times, dot my I's, cross my T's, just to be sure that my work was still high quality, be it the corporate job or my entrepreneurial work. The other thing about the mindset shift was you have to be willing to just be comfortable being uncomfortable and take risk. And because if you don't take any risks, you never get any reward. So I took a bunch of risk. The one thing I didn't like about some of the entrepreneurship was some of the all the taxes that come out of your business, paying corporate taxes, plus Social Security taxes, plus unemployment taxes, plus state, just all the taxes. I had a great person doing my bookkeeping and accounting, but when I looked at it, look, oh, wow, I could have hired 2 more people for the price I have to pay for all this taxes. And taxes just, for one, I hate the tax. I hate IRS. I hate North Carolina Department of Revenue. They always challenge entrepreneurs, especially when you accumulate enough money. They want to kind of come after you they want to go through your tax return, and they say, oh, we just randomly sample you. I'm like, really? It's just kind of odd the way, they just can't let people thrive, especially when you're giving so much of your time and energy away that you don't get compensated for. So yeah. But that was one of the biggest shifts is the networking with the people I knew. And in my consulting work, people actually knew other people in other companies, and I consulted back with the company I work for. So they got something out of it as well, as far as the support I get. So I didn't totally leave what I call financial services. I just stayed on the outside and didn't want to be an employee with them anymore, because I knew that you didn't have control of your career. You have to actually go where they want you to go, whether you wanted to or not. Oftentimes they would actually put you in positions, which they put me in positions where my peers, I was first, I had a bunch of peers, then all my peers reported to me. And that was just interesting. So that's where I learned to, how do you actually still lead people who are used to being your peer when you know they're very uncomfortable with that new situation. But that's when I actually left, maybe about 6 months after that. So they didn't work for me for long, but long enough for me to see the frustration they had with, now they report to me versus we all reported to the same leader.
That may speak to the reason why a lot of times people don't promote from within because of that. And so they pull people from the outside. And even though you might have somebody that's highly qualified for the role that's internal, but because they feel like there's going to be some conflict there with that, with people being too familiar and familiarity breeding contempt, and then it just creating a problem for that. But that was really interesting. Again, I'm learning more about your career path, this evening than I think, because I don't think we ever really just sit around talking about, we talk about other stuff. So okay, so you made a comment about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So it's kind of like what I said a few weeks back, like choose your hard. You're going to be either comfortable with being uncomfortable with somebody telling you what to do, or you're going to be uncomfortable with somebody always telling you what to do, or you're going to be uncomfortable with trying something new that you've never done before and launching out and everything not being in place. Like you're building the plane while you're flying, right? At some point in time, you should be able to land the plane, right? But you still have to kind of build things up while you are going. I think one of the common misconceptions about business ownership and entrepreneurship in general is that it's so glamorous. I think you have already started to dispel that, right? It is so glamorous because people don't see that it's kind of like an iceberg. Because like you said, I would be up 24 hours. So they don't see all the work that you're doing behind the scenes to establish your own.
Yo, we could have talked for days, but because we want you to join us next Tuesday for another episode of TerriTalks, that's it for today. Talk soon.